Welcome to Dive Deep. I'm your host, Caleb Swartz. Our goal here at Dive Deep is transformation. During this series, we are exploring the transformation that Pastor Arlie and CWC have experienced during his leadership and care. In today's episode, we're going to share a memory from someone that's been impacted by Pastor Arlie and allow him to respond. Then we'll hear some additional background on what was happening during the development of this particular sermon. Kick back and relax as we take a journey down memory lane in the Vintage Collection. Pastor Arlie, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, Caleb. Good to be here.
Glad to have you. And so today, it'll be someone near and dear to your heart sharing a memory. Sharon Davis, your wife, is going to share a fond memory.
Oh, fun. Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Okay, good.
Well, many funny things have happened to our family through the years as our children were growing up. But one experience we recall and laugh about is the Saturday night we decided to go out in our yard and watch a very publicized meteor shower. We woke the kids up somewhere around 1 or 2 a.m. to go out in our front yard and watch the night sky. We likely took chairs or blankets along to sit on. My daughter had a friend staying over for the night, so she came along as well. The kids and I filed out the front door, and Arlie was the last one outside. We sat out there and savored all the shooting stars and constellations until they all felt they'd seen enough and wanted to go back in the house and go to bed because we had to be at church first thing in the morning. That was when Dad, Pastor Arlie, informed us that we couldn't go back in the house because we were locked out. We had replaced our front door with one that can be opened by turning the knob and remain locked when closed. Poor Arlie had realized the instant the door closed that we were locked out because no one had thought to turn the button to the unlock position before we exited. He had sat there the whole time wondering what we would say or do when he had to tell us. Of course, the kids said, "Dad, how will we get in?" We always keep our ground floor windows locked and do not hide keys outside, so we knew we were in a pickle. We knew we had to be at church and could not wait until a decent hour the next morning to re-enter the house. So we had given one neighbor a key because they helped us with pet care for our dog when we would go away. So poor Arlie again had to go and knock on their door, wake them up, and ask for our key. The neighbor man did not look happy to see him at that hour, but obligingly went and gave him the key. So since then, we've become almost OCD about making sure we have our keys or intentionally unlocking our doors if we need to get back in the house. What can I say? We got to watch the stars, we went back to bed, and Pastor Arlie got to show up for church to preach the sermons the next day. So all's well that ends well.
How old were the kids at that point?
Maybe 8 and 11.
So it would have been the late 90s.
Yeah.
So that was during the growth explosion.
Yes, it was.
So you had to come to the next day. How'd that go over? Did you tell them at church?
Oh, no. It was too fresh.
It was still a wound, right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I knew the whole time.
Yeah.
Because, as soon as I closed it, it was like, and I didn't make any noise or say anything because I thought, oh, nobody will enjoy the meteor shower if I talk about it. So I'm just going to wait till it's all over.
That's leadership right there.
Yeah, I've had to do that more than once in my life. You delay your own feelings so you can be able to keep the others afloat.
You know, I think that in and of itself, that's a skill that if people can master, it can save so much heartache through life. Because otherwise you miss things when you're caught up in your own emotions.
Absolutely.
And that's not saying that they're bad, but
right.
You got to be the one to control them, not let them control. I think I heard someone say that once.
I think
probably
so.
In Christless.
I probably have said that more than once, because I think your emotions and your own feelings, you have to set yours on hold if you want to help, create the kind of situation that you need for your whatever it is, your family, your
staff,
coworkers,
people you're
your
serving,
friends, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it was really fun this morning as we were in a staff meeting, as Sharon was talking a little bit about all the memories in Davis Chapel. Can you? I think that the listeners would love to hear. Can you just share some of those hallmark moments that she talked about that happened in Davis Chapel, starting with the first date?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I like you'll have to remember all the rest to
Well, they were
remind me.
fresh to me and new to
Okay.
me, but obviously it's
Our-
40 years of history for
Our
you.
first date was actually ended up there.
Okay. So you started somewhere else.
We went out for dinner.
Okay.
It was a blind date I arranged because, I had this guy who wanted me to kind of meet this coworker that he had, and I asked what she looked like, and he said, "Oh, she's real sweet." And I was like, "I don't think so." And he goes, "No, she's pretty too, but she's sweet." And I was like, you kind of said sweet first and then pretty last. I kind of think no. And so she worked at a bakery at the time. She hadn't got a job yet past college. And so I kind of kept going and buying donuts and looking to see what she looked like. I couldn't find her. So I finally just called her up and said, "Hey, my name is Arlie Davis. Would you like to go out for dinner?" She knew of my name, so she said yes. And that night, I had to sing the next day in church.
Yeah.
And so I was practicing later on. I didn't know I'd still be on the date, which we kind of connected so much that I just said, "Hey, would you like to come along with me?" And she said, "Sure." And so she actually met my parents on the first date. That's pretty odd.
Yeah. Well, when she said that, I thought it was intentional. I'm like, wow, he's moving fast.
I did move fast. In 6 months, we were married. And 3 months, like I just, invited her to, and proposed, and 3 months later, we were married.
Wow.
And so it was boom, boom, boom.
Right. But for those listening, so it was in Davis Chapel, which
It
Davis
was.
Chapel is the original sanctuary
That's
of
correct.
CWC. If you haven't been to the opposite end of the building as the well, that's where it's located.
Correct. And I was like on this date, and I said, "I have to practice for tomorrow." And so let's song. So I went in, practiced, and I could play 2 songs on the piano. I have them memorized, like I don't know that I do now, but I did then. They were very impressive. They were very difficult, and I just memorized that. I can't play anything else, but those 2 I could. So I played one of them. Well, I mean, good heavens, she thought, "Wow, this guy can play the piano." I can't really, but I
You can
could
play
do-
those too.
Yeah, I took a few years lessons, but they didn't last long.
Nice.
But yeah, so pretty impressive. The guy can sing. He plays the piano. This might be a good thing.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, that was really fun to hear. And then not only that, later she shared that was actually where you were ordained.
I was in Davis Chapel, absolutely.
Who ordained you?
Harry Wood.
Oh, Dr. Wood.
He was Dr. Wilson ordinarily would have done it, but he actually was our general superintendent, but he was not available at that time.
I see.
Had a conflict, and so he contacted, and I have the letter, said, "Sorry, I won't be able to be there. Dr. Wood will be in my place." And so he was.
But that's really neat because you two have shared such a dynamic relationship
Absolutely.
over your ministry careers.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's really neat. And then to hear all of the stories that we shared this morning of what all happened in Davis Chapel. And, I come in as a newer guy, sit there and I guess take it for granted that it's just another space. But boy, when it's tied to so many memories and people and events.
Huge number of those, like Pastor Ryan said, he got baptized in Davis Chapel. That was back when we had it there. Just all of the things that were a part of that room.
Well, watching different people make a decision to follow Jesus in that room.
Yeah, it was incredible. Incredible.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow. Well, as we continue going back memory lane, this past week's sermon was on heavenly thoughts, I'll say, because we didn't even get through the whole thing. Why did you pick this sermon to share this week?
Well, I would like to say that, I have such great thoughts that they just bring me to such conclusions. But more realistically, I would say, if we're being faithful and following God, the scripture says our steps are directed by him.
Yeah.
And I find that more often than not, when I look back, I go, wow, God did that. He directed those steps. He was the one who really put that in place, that I would be able to do that. And so I try to think about what were the sermon series that seemed to be most requested over the years. And Our Lives Under Construction, that was one of the ones that tons of people. And then this one on heaven was. when it started out, I didn't really know I was going to do a whole series on it. I thought I was just going to, because the series was called You Asked For It. So what I did was I tried to get people to say, okay, what kind of questions would you have?
Yeah.
And that came up about heaven, and all of that was a part of that. And so I thought, okay, that'll work. And so I started, and when I started, I realized, wow, it just was like hitting like an issue that a lot of people had questions.
Mm-hmm.
And before I knew it, it just developed into this long series on heaven. And then a whole bunch of people said, oh, I really needed to hear this. And then I got a copy of it from my whatever relative or my family member. And all of those were like, we don't talk about heaven enough. And
Yeah.
So that's where it went.
I think that's still so true, because as I sat in service yesterday and looked around, you could tell people were they were captivated. They were thinking so hard about what you were talking about, and with I don't know, almost a look of relief as they were hearing it. It was almost like fresh water on a thirsty throat,
Yeah.
It really was meeting a felt need almost.
Well, I think that there's been, when we talk about COVID in the past year, it's a horrible year to go out on. But anyway, we talk about COVID and all that's been a part. Realistically, COVID took the fun out of life.
It did.
I mean, almost any fun event that was a part of our world over the last year has been taken out. And so, it's just been really hard for everyone, because you kind of functioned and did whatever you had to by Zoom or by whatever kind of method. And then, you did a few necessary meetings, and as things continue to build, but still the fun things are almost still not back in place.
Right.
Concerts and, venues where you'd have just fun or do things or activities or whatever. So, it feels like people are so thirsty for good news.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Give me something good
Yeah.
news. Let me know. And so, when you talk about heaven, it's like, this is good. Okay, that's still in place. We're still going to be able to do that, in person.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just so nice to hear. And I think people probably have a lot of wrong perceptions about what heaven is and what to expect and what it's going to be. And so I think what you discussed yesterday helped to put that a little bit at ease. And I wanted to give you an opportunity just to respond to a thought about the resurrection bodies that eventually we're going to have, right? Because Jesus had a resurrected body, though it wasn't the same as our bodies. Mm-mm. And of course,
it's a glorified body.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if we'll have the same exact body or not. We could.
I think we will.
I think we will. I think that's why he came back and demonstrated it.
I'll go with that.
But and the question has been raised, and I've talked to a few people about this.
I think we can pass between walls. We can walk right between walls, and nothing will stop us.
I just want to be able to jump real high. I don't know. That's a weird desire, but
no,
that's
fun.
Like,
that's
that sounds fun, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, or fly.
I want to fly.
Yeah,
I've always wanted to fly.
I always had dreams of flying and jumping very high.
Yeah, that's what they say. That's what they say.
I mean, well, Freud would call it the royal road to the unconscious.
I've heard all those things.
Oh my goodness.
I just think flying would be fun. Anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, these bodies, is understanding our body, or maybe our resurrected body, is it an essential piece of understanding who we are as created beings? Can you separate the two, or do they need to be understood together? And it almost creates a whole rabbit trail depending on how you answer.
A dark hole that we can go down.
Maybe a light hole. I don't know. It could be
Maybe
good.
it's a light hole. Yes,
Yeah.
You're right. It's not dark.
No.
So are you, what you're asking about, what's the difference between our resurrected body and our physical body?
Or just, I think.
I'm going to have a new one. It's going to be buff.
I think that's, oh, there you go.
It's going to be really buff.
I think that's more what I'm saying, is just understanding that we are going to have bodies when this is all over and done with.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think people get this concept that we're disembodied.
Well, what would be the point of our bodies, our resurrected body coming together? If we weren't going to have it. I mean, we are going to have it. So this particular body, the shell that I'm in, is temporary. But it does say that we're going to be resurrected with a glorified body. And will it be similar? Well, according to Jesus's glorified body, it was similar. Now, he did still have some scars.
Yeah.
So I don't know that was that just particularly for him so they could identify him?
Yeah.
Because I think ours will be perfect, our bodies.
Yeah.
And so if we're going to have a perfect body, that's going to be cool. But then to understand that will we be able to kind of transport ourselves into other places? Yeah,
Right.
I really believe.
Yeah.
So we'll be going from the new Jerusalem to the new heaven to the new earth, just like that. Boom. It's just all so exciting.
It is. And we're going to get to eat because Jesus ate, right?
Absolutely.
So let's feast.
Well, we start out with the marriage supper of the Lamb.
Yeah. Big party.
Yes. And see, we that just right now are the ones who will get to experience that because we're the bride. And so we will all be enjoying that. There's a whole bunch of thoughts that are a part of all of that.
Isn't it?
But you won't gain weight. That's the one cool thing. You can eat as much as you want. No
I'm so
calories.
looking forward to that.
Nothing will have calories.
Probably eat ice cream for a couple weeks.
Yeah,
straight.
nothing will have calories. And, it's just, and there will be animals.
Yeah.
So I think all of those things are going to be really cool.
Oh, it's going to be so great.
I'm looking forward to it.
Good thoughts to be focused on as we finish out this COVID experience. Thanks so much for joining us, Pastor Arlie.
Thanks. Good to be here.
And thanks for spending some of your time with us today on CWC Dive Deep. Join us next Wednesday as we continue sharing memories from the Vintage Collection. We've got another really great story in store for you next week, so be sure to tell others about the podcast and listen in. If you missed past episodes, you can check those out at cwc.life/dive-deep. Have a great week.